Hello Internet, my name is Andrew Eder, and welcome to another episode of Film Editorials. The topic of this week's video is a little movie you might have heard of starring one of the most famous fictional women of all time. That's right, today I'm reviewing Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman stars Gal Gadot and Chris Pine and is directed by Patty Jenkins, and it tells the origin story of, you guessed it, Wonder Woman, starting with her time as a young Amazonian girl to when she goes out into the wider world to save humanity from World War I. You see a lot of movies about World War II, but you don't see that many movies about World War I. So as a history major, this movie had my interest pretty much right away. Of course, Wonder Woman is a DC Comics property, so this film is set amongst the rest of the DCEU, they're calling it, the DC movie universe, which also includes Man of Steel, and Batman vs. Superman, and Suicide Squad, which we try not to talk about around here. For starters, Gal Gadot is an excellent Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is supposed to be beautiful and smart and scary, and Gal Gadot is all of those things. If she's mad at you, you're going to run in the opposite direction as fast as humanly possible. Unfortunately, she runs faster than humanly possible, so you're kind of out of luck if she's mad at you, so don't make her mad. One of my favorite things about her character and the way this movie was written was the confident fish out of water story they're telling. After she leaves the island of the Amazons, she shows up to modern London, and she has to interact with modern society, and she's definitely out of her element, but she doesn't let anything faze her, and that confidence, but still being the pretty classic fish out of water story, was cool, and just, I don't know, you don't see that very often, and I liked that. I also liked Chris Pine's character. He was very Chris Pine, but the character was written in such a way that you felt like there was more going on to this character that you just didn't get to explore because there wasn't time, and it would be really unnatural to go into all this backstory about this character. Instead of, pausing the movie to check some boxes off about his backstory, we just focused on what she was doing and why he was there helping her and why she was there helping him, and just focusing on the actual story they had to tell instead of really trying to tie him into the larger universe, which was good because otherwise the movie would get bogged down way too quickly. As far as the plot goes, it's not very elaborate, it is pretty straightforward, but that's not really a bad thing because compared to the rest of the DC movies, it feels very streamlined and it makes a lot of sense, and you don't have to worry about fitting all these weird pieces together. Specifically, Wonder Woman believes that Ares, the Greek god of war, who in this universe is a bad guy, has started World War I, so she leaves the island of the Amazons to go stop him because war is bad. There you go. I mean, that's basically it. Everyone else tags along because they also think that war is bad, but they just don't know if, the Greek god of war is behind it all. And that brings me to another point which differentiates this movie from its counterparts in the DC cinematic universe, and that is the tone of the movie. While the movie is visually dark at certain points, I mean, No Man's Land in World War I is not exactly a bright, colorful place, but the tone of the movie is actually fairly optimistic. At the end of the day, the movie is about hope and the power that people have and the goodness inside humans, which is comforting and nice and a relief, really. The movie says that yes, bad things can happen, and yes, people can cause their own bad things to happen, but if you're strong enough and if you're brave enough, then you can push through those problems, and that is a good thing and an important thing. Now, I've just said that I like the messages of this film and I like the general straightforward nature of the plot of this film, but those two things combine in the third act, and the movie takes a turn, frankly, for the melodramatic, and I didn't like that. I can't really elaborate too much on that point because I would be giving stuff away, but let's just say at one point there's someone on the ground, laying on their back, facing the sky, yelling no. And it just feels really tacky. Furthermore, the movie ends with this little monologue, and the monologue really puts this extra neat little bow on the whole thing, which I felt was really unnecessary. We got the point of the movie before then, like the messages that I've been talking about are telegraphed throughout the story, and she even goes so far as to tell the villain how she feels. So we know what she's thinking, and we know how we should be feeling about this whole situation and what we should be taking away from this as we leave the theater. But then Patty Jenkins, I guess, decides that we need to see it again in this little epilogue monologue thing, and it felt saccharine. It was too much. I didn't need it. She might as well have said, "Dear Diary," beforehand. That's how out of place and out of character it felt. I That did not sit well with me at all. The movie is not so straightforward as to be boring, however. There are a couple of twists and turns. Unfortunately, I was able to predict them. I don't know if that's just me having seen a whole bunch of movies and knew what to expect, or if, you know, they were just really obvious, but I felt like I was disappointed that the twists were as obvious as they were. This movie is also quite funny, which was a delightful change of pace from both World War I movies and movies set in the DC universe. Most of those are pretty grim. This movie, not that grim. Plenty of opportunities to genuinely laugh. Also, there were a couple of times in this movie where I felt like the CG effects weren't as good as they should be, especially since the movie cost something like $100 million to make. And it's a major DC tentpole. You'd think that they would put a lot of money into making their effects look good. Now, it is just a couple of times, so it's not enough for me to, like, hate this movie, because it's certainly not worth that. But it did pop me out of the movie-going experience. Whereas the characters really have me invested, then all of a sudden everything looks really fake for some reason. And I go, oh, right, I'm watching a movie. I've mentioned many times in my previous videos that I am in no way a comic book expert. In fact, I would definitely say I'm not a comic book expert. So I am not familiar with the comic book version of the character, which means that I really don't know what Wonder Woman's superpowers are, and this movie doesn't do a lot to help clarify that situation. I know that she is a well-trained Amazon, so she's, you know, really smart, really good with languages, is capable of giving and taking a punch, can fight with swords, can fight with spears, can fight with the lasso. So I know she's a good fighter, but I don't know how far that extends. I also don't know how far her ability to take damage goes. Early on in the movie, an Amazon gets shot and dies. Okay, so is Wonder Woman immune to bullets? She seems to not care too much about them, but then she's deflecting them with her shield and her bracelets, and seems kind of concerned about getting shot, but then she can be thrown, like, through a building and nothing happens. What are the extent of her powers? I don't know. Maybe she doesn't know because she's still learning, but I was confused. Things take a turn for the worse at the end of the film when she starts using the powers of the Greek gods, I guess? Or at least, she's definitely got lightning powers. Or she's just using her lightning powers? Is she absorbing the lightning powers? There are lightning bolts? I don't know what's going on, really. Why does he have lightning power? He shouldn't have lightning power. He's Mars. I think I'm thinking too much about this, and I know too much Greek mythology, like regular Greek mythology, to interact with this comic book version of Greek mythology. Anyway, I was confused about her powers. This movie doesn't help. So, I mean, that's a thing that I have to deal with, I guess. Maybe people who know the comic books better are fine with this. If you did not read a lot of the comics, please let me know what you thought of her powers down below in the comments, because like, I get that she's really good at fighting, but how good is really good? Okay, so I am going to have to give Wonder Woman 4 stars out of 5. I think Gal Gadot is everything you could possibly want for the character of Wonder Woman. I really liked the comedy, and the fact that the comedy worked well with the more serious bits, and I thought that the message and the morals of the film were really good and really important things to keep in mind as we go about our daily lives. On the other side of the coin, I felt like the third act got really melodramatic in a really unnecessary way. I don't think the movie does a great job of communicating exactly what her powers are and how much she knows about her powers. And while I generally applaud this movie for not being a really confusing mess, I think it might have gone a little bit too far in the other direction by being a little bit too predictable with its twists. I definitely think this was a good movie. I've seen some people who are saying this movie is like a transcendent emotional experience, and I certainly did not have that response to it. I think it's good. I just don't think it's that good. Okay, I think that's going to be it for today's video. Thank you for watching. Let me know down below in the comments how you felt about her powers. Did they all make sense to you, or did you start to lose track of what she could and could not do like I did? Please don't forget to like this video, share it with all of your friends, follow me on social media like Facebook, Twitter, and Snapchat, and be sure to check out my friends over at The Good News Review, tgnreview.com. I will see you guys next time. Bye!